Hi, everybody. It's Randy with Direct Action. This podcast is brought to you by Carcajou Tactical and Grey Fox Strategic, two Canadian-owned and operated companies here in the National Capital Region. For your Direct Action DA10 code, plug that into Grey Fox Strategic when you go on their website and you're looking for your next purchase. Type in DA10 for a 10% discount off Grey Fox Strategic equipment and apparel. All right, what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing on this fine day? It's Randy with Direct Action. We have a guest today for this segment of the podcast. His name is Brian Rockbot. Traveled all the way from California to do some training with us here in Ottawa this week. And while he's here this week, we're taking an opportunity to sit down with him, get to know him a little bit, ask some questions. And he's got a very colorful background that you viewers and listeners are going to enjoy. Private contracting experience. He's been teaching martial arts and been around martial arts in some combative form for many, many years. So Brian, awesome. Thanks for making the time, and having this discussion with us here at the DA Podcast Center. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian. Where'd you grow up? What was your upbringing like?
Sure. I grew up in New York City. Originally was born in New York. My parents then moved to Chicago for a couple of years and then moved back to New York. And I was really born and raised in New York, all over the city. Had a very colorful childhood. So I wouldn't say I was the best child on the planet by any means. I definitely got in more trouble than not. And, lived a life that was very exciting.
Oh, yeah. Brothers, sisters, siblings?
One sister, yes.
Older or younger?
Older.
And was she, as part of your upbringing, was she in a position to try to, create direction for you, or no? So two very different people.
Yes,
okay.
In fact, I'm very different from everyone in my family. I used to say I was a milkman's kid because it's just so obviously different than everybody else, and my choices from a child through my adulthood. It was just natural for me to do specific things, and I didn't really think about it very much. It was just who I was and like what I wanted to do, and I did what I wanted to do, basically, and not in a selfish way, just in a desire. Like I always wanted to live a life that was worth looking back on and appreciating the things that I had done or accomplished one way or another.
So when you were born and raised in New York, and you said you moved around a little bit in New York, what part of New York proper did you spend the most part of your time?
I would say the most time we spent was in Upper East Side, Midtown of New York until I was older. And again, anyone who grew up in New York in the 80s or 70s, 80s, the city was a very different place. Even though you might have lived in a nice building or a nice neighborhood, it was very gang related from block to block. It was a very colorful neighborhood type of environment. And the neighborhoods don't exist anymore. They haven't existed for a long time. But at the time that I was growing up, I went to public school most of my life. And then I went to private schools, which I got thrown out of course. And, the process of going to public school and then going to private school was a very drastic difference and dichotomy of experiences. I was very much more comfortable in the public school environment. The school, my original junior high school had a police station within the school itself. It was one of the things that it was a very wild school, and everyone was pretty much bussed in. I went to school that was at a time 1% or 2% white, and I was one of the 2%. Right. So it was great. I didn't have a problem with it. And, we had a lot of, again, like, I wouldn't say it's racism, because it's not. It's just how you grow up. So it's not really a racist environment in any way. But if you are, the 1% white in a school versus, where it's mostly either Spanish or African American, there's going to be interactions that obviously don't go exactly how they should.
Sure. So what was the motivation with your folks pulling you from public school, putting you in private school, and how was it vastly different? So for folks that maybe don't know, like myself, I've never went to private school. I wouldn't even know. I have an idea of what that might look like. But for folks that are listening, what's the difference between the two?
Sure. Public school in New York, when I was growing up, is basically it's where you go to school if you live in a neighborhood. And given that the neighborhoods were rent controlled neighborhoods in some aspects, so you had, families that have lived there for 50 years and, Irish, Italian, and German in most of the neighborhoods that I grew up with. And then say like you'd go 10 blocks up and it's Latin and Black. And so there's like all these, issues back and forth that you have when you cross borders from one place to another. And the schools represent that. Like, so in a public school, there's no options of who goes there or not. It's, you get pulled in from the neighborhood or you get busted.
Right.
So, at the time I was going there, that's kind of how it was. And a public school is the complete opposite. It's like you're chosen to go there, like you pay to go there. And so you pay because you want it to be a specific environment. And it's not a bad thing. It's just mostly you have to have some sort of money. Like we were middle class, but my parents wanted me to get a better education than what was happening, obviously, in public school. And they wanted me to have a different environment. I was a fighter, like literally since I was 5. And I stayed very active in martial arts since I was 5 and also fighting. And so they saw that. I kept it away from them most of the time. Mm-hmm. But if you live in a neighborhood, what tends to happen is as a neighborhood, you have people who live down the block from you, you have neighbors, all these other things, and they see your parents walking in the street. They'll say, have you seen what, the trouble Brian got into? You see what happened, this other day? If I didn't say so, they would say so. They had the freedom in the neighborhood that if, say, an old dude saw you doing something wrong, he'd smack you in the head, play in, put you in your place. And, and it was just how it was. There was no question to it. So
you started like formal martial arts at a really young age. Mm-hmm. At what age do you feel like you kind of matured out of the nonsense, getting involved with, street fights and altercations where, most people that train in a formal martial arts of some sort tend to be more disciplined, tend to avoid those confrontations, and tend to be just a little bit more reserved generally, not always, but,
sure.
But generally. So at what age do you feel like that started to transition for you where you're getting in less trouble, still training martial arts in one form or another, which we're going to talk about in a second. But do you remember a specific event or incident that kind of changed things for you? Where you're like, wait a minute, why am I acting this way? And why am I involved with these people?
Sure, absolutely. I would say like literally the issue for me was growing up the way I grew up. I had to fight every day almost coming back from school or going to school because you had different blocks that different kids lived on and they had different gangs basically. And whether it was a gang of 15 kids or 30 kids, you would be crossing a street and obviously you cross the street and there are people sitting on a stoop and they know who you are and there's conflict created. So, fighting from a very young age and being in a situation where it's almost like you have to fight. It's not you can either run or fight. Mm-hmm. And so you choose to stop running after a while. And at times you even have no option. You have to fight. So you get cornered in situations where you have to fight. That didn't stop for a long time. And also in school as well, if you're in public school and you're a minority in the public school, you have fights. It's just part of how it was.
Right.
And there's, hundreds of situations like that. So for me, it wasn't where it was, I guess I was choosing to do it. Obviously, there were kids who went through school who didn't do it.
Sure.
But I was always the kid that I didn't really allow people to push me in different directions I didn't want to go. Or
comfortable with conflict.
Yeah, and I was very comfortable with conflict from a young age. Mm-hmm. That's, again, I was different than the majority. And there's no reason why. Like, people always ask, like, did you have some sort of issue as a kid? Like, did your parents treat you incorrectly? Or I had perfect parents. They were great. Like, every family has their things, of course, but and there's no perfect that exists. But if you looked at the situation, it wasn't a bad situation anyway. Right. I had a great time. My parents were awesome. They supported me as much as they should. Like, it was nothing bad.
Right.
It was just in me. So I was just being me through the whole process. And that didn't stop. I mean, there's a lot of situations we can talk about later as like the reason I even left New York.
Right.
But, I started doing martial arts because I was fighting all the time and I wanted to be better at it. And
what martial arts were you drawn to? What did you find kept you the busiest when you were growing up?
Well, the initial, like when I was 5, I was actually in a fight outside of Johnny Cool's Combat Karate. And Johnny Cool was in a Black Belt Hall of Fame. Like, I didn't know who he was. He was a mercenary, and he opened up a school in the city. I also went to another martial arts school around the corner from there as well. And he saw me in a fight, and he dragged me into the school and said, if you really want to fight, come back here tomorrow. And he smacked me around a little bit, just like it was a neighborhood again.
Yeah. How old were you at this age?
5.
Oh, 5.
Yeah.
Literally. He literally saw you as a
he saw me,
kid.
Picked me up like I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And he smacked me around and said, if you want it, come on, if you're really going to do this, come back here tomorrow. And he set me on this path of martial arts in a way and understanding it in a different way. He's very combative in his processing, but he was still a martial arts instructor. So it was still disciplined and all the things that went along with it.
Right.
Again, I didn't go out looking for fights. It's not what happened. It's just they happen.
Yeah. Especially at 5 years old. I mean, you're still you're just a kid. You're not looking to, necessarily looking to, throw down with the local neighborhood kids.
You would think not,
yeah.
Of course.
So he takes you under his wing. You go home, you tell your mom and dad that you met this guy, you're going to start doing martial arts. And what was your mom and dad's response?
They were like, okay. I mean, they didn't have any real clue of what was really happening. I mean, even then, the things that were happening on the way to school. And, my mom followed me probably once or twice to school because I was very, specific about wanting to walk myself the 5 blocks it was to get to school at that age. And so she, of course, said, okay, but followed me the whole time. And I caught her. And so I made sure she wouldn't do that again over and over again. And however it happened, they didn't see really what was going on. They didn't see it in school until I was either suspended or got in trouble in some way at school for fighting or doing something specific. Again, I wouldn't say I was the best kid on the planet by any means, but there was no malicious intent of going out and trying to find fights by any means. It just was happening. I really think that process is what created part of who I was. The combative side of things was always of interest to me, and martial arts was always of interest to me. And we grew up in the time where, of course, Bruce Lee was still a big thing, and all that stuff was something that was going on in the time in New York as well. There was a lot of martial arts in New York, but it were very, the martial arts community was very, very different. It was a much harder environment in general.
Right.
As you grew up in it, it was one of those things where it was, there were no women training.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of that happening because the environment didn't allow for it to happen.
Right.
It was a very hard thing, and most women would choose not to go through it.
Sure.
And, the instructors or the business itself didn't really cater itself to it, and they didn't change it in any way at the time.
Right.
I don't think they looked at it as business in the same way. But yeah.
So you're growing up and you're in New York. You're now on this path of formal karate martial arts, and then you graduate high school, and then you're still in New York. Do you go to university in New York, or is this when you moved to California, or what brought you to California?
Yeah, so I started training in many martial arts. I was doing Thai boxing. I was doing Jiu-Jitsu. I was doing Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wasn't around yet.
Right.
And I was just training in different systems as I grew and learned more about them.
Yeah.
And that process opened up my eyes a little bit more to international ideas of martial arts. And as I grew, I would say things got a little more intense when it came to life.
Yeah.
And there was a situation, I was involved in a few of them, but one specifically was the catalyst that my parents decided to move out of New York from.
Right.
My dad had a job where he was, what would they call it? He was a recruiter for Fortune 500 companies. And so he would find different jobs and fill them for Fortune 500 companies. He would open businesses within the United States. So he would travel at times to go open up an office, a satellite office for a business. So he had moved out to California to open up a business for one of the companies he was working for at the time. And at that time, they had left my sister and I in our house. And of course, at that time, I was probably 17, 18. So we were wild and we were having parties all the time, having fun. But I was in school the entire time. I went to school. I didn't have to study very hard to actually get good grades.
Right.
So, I was able to kind of do both. And I put myself through school. I started going to school in New York for college. And through that, at a time where I was going through my first year of college there was an incident where I was in a gang kind of, and there was another gang that came around looking for me in a place that I was working in. It was an arcade, and it was New Year's Day. And I didn't know at the time, but I was walking down the block to go there. And all of a sudden I see these two guys come running towards me with baseball bats in their hands. And so by that time I was used to that. It wasn't a huge deal. And I had a friend with me and I was like, looked at him and was like, all right, we're going to have to get after it. And so I went to engage with the first guy, and I figured my friend was engaging with the second guy, but he had taken off. And so as I was engaging with the first guy, the second guy came around and whacked me in the back of the head with a bat. And I fell back against some gates and then covered my head. And basically they kind of went to town with bats. And I woke up at my girlfriend's house, which was about 1.5 miles away.
Yeah.
I woke up there. I had walked there. I didn't know it, and ended up where I just walked down to her house, told her what happened, came back to my house. But that was all that happened. I just got jumped basically. But what had really happened was I was going to the arcade that I had worked in. I had a friend who was in there as well at the time. These guys came in looking for me with the bats, and it was a full arcade at the time. And they told everybody to face the machines. So they basically made everybody face the machines, looking for me and calling out like my name. My friend said something to them. And basically they killed him. They beat him over the head with bats, split his skull. He died. And that's when I was coming down the block when they were running out from doing that.
Oh, wow.
And then they engaged with me. So I had to go to court over that. And that was kind of the straw for my dad, because it was a big deal at the time. I had to go to court for it. There was a lot of people after me because of it. Like, there was a lot of things going on. So basically he said, listen, we're moving. Like, I'm taking you out of the city. Like, we can't stay here anymore. And I did not want to go in any way, for sure. I wanted to stay regardless, but I had no option. So I moved out to California with them.
Gotcha.
And at that time, we moved to Burbank in Los Angeles, and I was going back and forth between Los Angeles and New York as much as I could, because I still enjoyed New York and I didn't want to leave. And I didn't really like California in the sense where the weather was great and it was an awesome environment, but the people and I just didn't get along at the time. They weren't my type of people at that time.
Yeah.
They were just different. And it's just, it's something when you don't want to leave your home and you go to a new place, you always see the negatives and the positives until you take a breath, look at it and go, okay, the people are fine. You have to get used to them like anywhere else. There are good people and bad people everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. A lot more good people than there are bad people.
For
but
sure.
They're everywhere.
Yep.
So now you're in California, and this is where, did you continue university in California?
Yep.
What did you study?
Sports medicine.
Sports medicine.
Yep.
So now you're in California. Your mom and dad are in Cali as well. So everyone's together now, and your sister too.
Yep.
Everybody's there. And your continued journey of martial arts is ongoing.
Yep.
So
I'm training Thai boxing, training kickboxing, training in Kali Eskrima, and Jiu-Jitsu at the time as well.
Right.
Again, still Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu hadn't made it as large there at the time yet, but it was starting. So I was starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu then. As well, we just cross-training with it. There was a lot of martial arts in California at the time.
Right.
So I was running into people all the time. I trained at the Jet Center, I trained in different places that had a lot of kickboxing going on. So I was meeting all these very cool people and just training with them. At the time, I was putting myself through school.
Right.
By working in clubs. So I was a bouncer in clubs at the same time I was going to school. And that's where the whole journey of security started to begin.
Okay. So was it the experience in bouncing and security that led you to private security work? And from the private security work that you were doing for many, many years, at what point did you decide to open up the business of the Elite Training Center? Or was it after, before, during?
Much further down the line.
Okay,
so I did not open that the school or the academy until, it's 20 years ago now. So It's been a while. But I was doing security and traveling around and doing all the other work, contracting, much sooner than I was actually opening up the business. The business was more of a retirement idea.
So how did you find yourself into private security work? How did that unfold?
Sure. I was working in clubs, and at the time I was working at a place called the Troubadour, and Sam Kinison was playing, and he had asked my friend and I if we wanted to go on tour with him, and we were like, sure. But he had asked us if we had a company, and we were kids. We were like, no. He's like, well, just start something, and then it's something that we can then take you out on. I'd gone and started working with bands. I worked with Geffen Records and other bands as a contractor for them with security as well. And through that process, we had met a lot of different people. And I ended up meeting, I don't know if I'll say his name out here, but somebody who was involved in bands specifically. He was one of the lead people for a very large band at the time. And he invited me on tour with them. And so I went on tour with them. He was a special forces operator, and he had no real hand-to-hand combat skills.
Right.
At that time, especially, like, they weren't really doing that. But his shooting was incredible, and he was looking for a way to train, and he wanted to train the other security personnel that he had. So he asked me if I would help do that. And I said, sure. And he got me into that process of, the larger scheme of contracting, but more security just for entertainment at the time.
Sure.
That started the move down the line towards security. And through that process, I met other people that he knew that were more involved with the military.
Okay. So now you're doing more travel on the road, more military-esque contracting. So what does that look like for somebody that, when we hear the word private contracting, it means different things to different people, and there's companies that maybe come to people's names,
sure,
based on history and stuff.
Yep.
But what does a private contractor do? What's the day-to-day look like? How does it look?
I think again, it's very different for different people. So I think there's a gambit of jobs within that. There are
for you specifically.
Specifically, at the time, it was started where it was just static security jobs where you're working your way through, where people are learning to trust you and understand your skill and your personality. And then through that, you start going through training operations, like doing different operations, and you are training with them, and you spend time just doing training separately. And then when they trust in that type of training, then they give you other opportunities that you're getting prepared for. And for me, it was more of an operational job and also a training job at the time. So I was training other teams as well, and also doing operations that I was prepared for at that time.
So when you're doing these jobs, did you open up a business of private security? You fell under somebody else's business, and that's how you networked and were doing these jobs?
Through the first company that I worked for was somebody else's business, and I was working through them, and I met other military personnel at the time. They would bring me under their wing as well, because again, they started training with us, and it just was networking in general. Right. And that started like the spider web of network, where you started meeting new people. They started inviting you to do different things. It was especially at that time, it just wasn't really done very much. I was an anomaly in a sense where I had not served in the military. It's not something that I had interest in doing at the time, because I had planned to do sports medicine, and I had this idea of my path. Yeah. That path changed quickly after I graduated school, and I spent time in a doctor's office doing an internship, and I basically was doing that and traveling with bands at the time, and looked at it and I was like, this isn't for me. I can't sit in one spot, and it's just not for me. Like I might have
very different lifestyles. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the things where I decided at that moment, this is what I wanted to do versus this is what I wanted to do. So I didn't really use that education in that way at that time.
Right.
But it did assist me in other ways for sure.
Right on. And so now, how many years would you say you were active as a private contractor?
Fully 30 years.
30 years. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I started when I was 20. I would say I retired fully after 50. So,
right. And in those many, many years, many, many different experiences, what's the one experience that, you're obviously open and comfortable to share that was like, either a pivotal experience moment or something that you'll never forget, whether it was, a wild experience or something that you learned from, but can you think of a time? Well, it might be difficult to even answer, like if it was one specific thing or if it was in the era of time where you're operating in a certain part of the world or working with a certain group of guys that you're like, man, this is awesome. I absolutely love what I'm doing. This is a wild experience, making good money or whatever, anything you want to share.
I mean, I can't go too deep into specific things. I can say in general, as far as when I thought it was just amazing, I honestly thought it was amazing the entire time. Like the only thing I didn't enjoy that much was entertainment security. I did not like just the EP work, the protection work in that aspect for the clientele specifically. Sure. I know a lot of people love to do that and want to do that. For me, it didn't fulfill the need. It was babysitting for me, and I was just wasn't what I was into doing. I was looking for something more exciting. I was looking for something where I could fulfill a skill set and learn more of a skill set.
And is there a certain job, operation, or country that you worked in? You're like, wow, this is exciting. This is wild. This is everything I thought it would be in terms of shark.
Sure. I mean, honestly, it began in 91, probably when I was 18, 19, and I was beginning to do everything from the beginning. I was like, this is awesome from the beginning. When I was learning actually how to shoot and learning tactics in general, it's not something I had done in any way. So it was something, again, like always like being a student from the beginning to the end. Still now today, I still love being a student in every way possible. Yeah. So it was always an interest of mine to learn new things. That process of truly being combative and seeing the combative part of the martial skill being effective and having the opportunity to use it is really kind of what turned the light bulbs on for me and got me excited about doing things. I think there's such a large gambit of contracting, and I've done all of it. Right. So for me, I can't say this was where I started and I stayed there and that was where I was happy. It was the full experience that I enjoyed. Right. And going from one extreme to the other and working within Fortune 500 companies at that point and starting to deal with more of a high risk environment and dealing with the executives at that level that truly had a threat. Right. Like I thought that was much more exciting at that time. And then, finding people that I spent a very long time working with as a team, I thought that was great. Like honestly, it's like I probably would have been just fine working in the military. Like I could have gone into the military and found the same experience that way. It just wasn't my path. It didn't happen that way for me. So it's not something that I found that way. I found it in a different way.
And, with military or law enforcement, private security, I mean, the structure would be similar in some ways. You're working with a team. There's a team lead. There's training days, there's jobs, there's planning, there's togetherness, there's suffer, there's struggle, there's triumphs, there's victories. It's all probably very similar, just a different path. Why, from your opinion, why do you think in some cases private security gets a bit of a bad rap or looked down upon, where they're mercenaries or they're doing evil things when really it may not be the case? Why do you think that is? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that there is both. I think there is a side of that business that people do that are mercenaries. And there's a connotation of when you say contracting that would apply to those people. Right. I mean, when you use the verbiage contracting, it covers such a large gamut of people that there is a segment of the population that would be that. And it might be a huge section of the population. It just wasn't my section of the population.
Because you're embedded with a good team.
Yes, because the people that I decided to get involved with and then got embedded with, and then we trained together for a long period of time. And then we created a company that we all agreed on and we worked as a team on, and we all had a say in. And sure, there was team leads and all those things went through the same processing, but we made decisions as a group.
Right.
And when we took work, it was vetted work by us. And we decided based upon the politics or not, if we decided that was a good thing or not, not for money. Right. The money was a secondary issue, honestly. It was more about, sure, everyone's there to make money. That's the job. I mean, the case in any job. But it wasn't the guiding factor. It wasn't the deciding factor in any way.
Right.
It was more like, are we doing good? Like, is that what we're doing this job for? Like, where does that show itself and how does it show itself? And of course, there's going to be gray there. Like, gray is in every aspect of that too.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to learn to deal with that. But the idea behind it was still in the same vein where you believe you're doing the right thing, not where you're doing anything for money.
Right.
And I think the people who do things for money, they do fulfill that as far as that is mercenary, and they do bad things. There are people that are contractors that obviously do bad things. Just like in the military, there are people who are in the military that do bad things.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like anything else. But it's not the overall military. Like, It's not the majority of the military.
Yeah, there's a handful, small percentage pockets.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that. I do think that I've never looked at the larger scheme of it and said, like, okay, there's a percentage of contracting that is good or bad. But I do know there's plenty of it, like on both sides.
So in your experience, it was more positive than not, more great experiences than not. So, for the experience that you were able to, garnish through those years, you look back at no regrets.
No, I don't have any regrets in that aspect. I tend not to have regrets in general. I don't think, for me, they're not very useful.
Right.
Even in bad situations, I would always say, like, I chose to be here. Like, I own it and try to make the best out of it. Right. And, there's been jobs we've been on where we couldn't fulfill the contract because it went in a direction that we didn't agree to or we thought was not under the flag that we wanted to fly.
Right.
And we wouldn't fulfill it for money.
Right. So against the morals, values, or foundational beliefs, the team agreed that, this is the way we're going to do it.
Yep.
Very cool. And at what point did you decide to open up the business? And if you want, share with our listeners, like, what is it, the business? What does it look like? How did you get started?
Sure.
And, what led you to open up a business in martial arts?
Sure. After 9/11, we did a lot of work after 9/11. And in my brain, what I thought of was, the people who first made contact, the first contact or points of contact within, say, the plane or one of the planes are civilians. And so for me, I was thinking, we should give civilians some sort of information that would make them more prepared in some way for that type of situation.
Sure.
And at the time as well, like, I had experience with somebody from Israel, and that person also put me in contact with somebody else. They were both out of the Imam, which is one of the counter-terrorist teams there. And we brought over one of the lead instructors at the time. We are the people who opened up that business to begin with.
And what was it at the time? What was it called?
It was called Lotar.
Lotar.
Yep.
Okay.
Which was the name for the counter-terrorist school in Israel. But what we were doing there is trying to bring the Israeli version of martial arts to what we thought the population wanted and needed. But when we brought it, and we brought it into the environment in Southern California where we were at,
right,
it was not what the public wanted at the time, for sure. It was much too aggressive, much too hardcore,
right?
And as well, like, when we opened up the school, because of the mindset we were in, it looked very different. Like, with the pictures on the walls were very different. Like, the name, like, martial arts or the Israeli Special Forces was attached to the name. And so there was this overall connotation that what we were doing is very aggressive for what people were dealing with at the time. And
at that point in time, whether it's geographical location, just the realities of what people are looking for, it in your vision, did it succeed? Was it a slow burn? Did it have to be altered and changed in order to get people in the door? Otherwise, like, you know, you might have a school and a system to deliver, but if you have no one to deliver it to, then it's not going to do so well.
100%. And it was part of the discussions we were having at the time that what we were trying to deliver was a little bit too aggressive, and the verbiage that we were using was too aggressive, and how we were teaching might be too aggressive for the population that we were dealing with at the time, especially in Southern California.
Of course.
You know, I mean, it's a beach environment where we're at, and the people there are just looking to have a good time and looking to find a different way to train. Some are worried about self-defense. Some are worried about protection. I do think at the time, right after 9/11, a lot of people pushed all that out of their head. They didn't want to really deal with it at the time. So even talking about it and speaking about training for it was opposite of what people wanted at the time. Even though I thought it was something people needed, I might think a lot of things are things people need, but it might not be the case. So in reality, we saw that, sure, at the time we probably had 100 students.
That's
which,
good.
Not to run a school, it's not.
No.
I mean, it's good to start with, but to open a business, it's not going to support anything, right? So
yeah, you get 100 though, and one person talks to one person, to them before you know it, you got 200.
Yep.
You know?
But that can go in both directions too.
Sure.
Based on how we're training.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think the process that we went through, we had a business partner as well. So it was obviously at the time we had money to open a school, but we did bring somebody in as an angel investor as well. And that person had a vision of what they wanted also. And it conflicted with the original person that I had brought over.
Right.
And so there was a split that happened. And because the person who was the investor was somebody I knew and I had a commitment to that person, I wouldn't just leave it. Yeah. So,
now you're kind of stuck in the middle.
Right. I was stuck in between those two people. And I was like, at the end of the day, I gave this person a commitment. I gave both of them a commitment, but the person who was paying for it, I also gave a commitment, and I couldn't just pull out of that. That's not something I would do. So
how did you navigate those waters?
It was a little rocky.
Yeah.
You know, for a while, when we had the split that happened, it was an unhappy split for both of us in a way, but more for the other person, the other party. I think the way they took it was I was choosing one side over another versus the situation was a commitment situation. It wasn't me trying to choose this person over that person. It was more of like an obligation. And I'm not going to not fulfill the obligation of somebody who. So
what ended up happening, because the business is doing well now. So how did the pivot switch to turning towards success, and how many years did that take, or what did that that outline unfold like? There
was a split, obviously. And the person that was originally with me left and they moved to a different state. I moved forward with a person who invested, and we started the change within the school. We named it Elite Training Center instead of using the LOTAR itself. We moved away from, martial arts with special forces. We started doing Thai boxing, self-defense, just different things, more in a fitness vein as well, but still doing martial arts the whole time.
Yeah.
But the package looked different.
So less, special forces, less hardcore, still teaching Krav Maga, maybe under a different banner, different title, different look, right? So a bit of a facelift. And now Muay Thai. And did you implement Jiu-Jitsu right away? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Jiu-Jitsu was part of the program. Wrestling is part of the program. For us, like the Krav that we were teaching at the time, especially, was not Krav. It wasn't the system that is taught as Krav.
Right.
It was a name that people understood and knew.
Right.
And we used the name to draw people in, and then we taught what we thought was best.
Right.
And so we were teaching Thai boxing within what we were doing. We were teaching wrestling. We were teaching mixed martial arts, basically.
Yeah.
With tools, so with weapons, without weapons, but still very mixed martial arts based. I kept within the curriculum things that had Krav Maga in it, so people who were coming from that system itself would recognize it as well.
Yep.
But soon I moved a lot of that out. And because in my experience, the way it was being taught wasn't proper. It just wasn't right to give the student the ability to actually fight. I am a strong believer still in the systems that work the best are systems that people can pressure test consistently in sparring and doing other things along those lines. Sports-based systems tend to be those.
Yep.
And then you change the ending of what it looks like, right? So like the system itself, like how you do jiu-jitsu, you still do jiu-jitsu, but now you make it combative and you're throwing strikes within it. So it's more like MMA jiu-jitsu versus just Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So it was more of mixed martial arts, and it had Krav in it, but it also had Kali in it. It also had Thai boxing in it. It had like Brazilian and Japanese jiu-jitsu in it. It had a lot of different things in it. So it was a mixed martial art.
It was really cool when we first met. I think it was like 2015, 2016, something like that. We had a mutual friend, my former manager when I was fighting MMA. We were on a trip in California, and Pat said, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy because you and him had met somewhere. I don't remember where."
Yeah, I don't recall.
And we went to your gym, and that's the first time we met. So we're hanging out, we're doing a little bit of training, and I could see all the accolades and stuff on the walls, and I'm understanding a little bit about Krav Maga, but not really training Krav Maga at that point. I just understood it a little bit, and I'm still operating at the unit at that time. And we hung out, we trained a little bit, and that's what I found really unique, where there was components of everything that you just said, but it was the added element that really enticed me and interested me was the weapons-based related stuff. So like we're doing jiu-jitsu. I remember no gi jiu-jitsu, there's no gi or anything, but then you would add, a knife or a training gun or whatever. I'm like, whoa, that kind of changes things. But I found it really interesting. I found it really neat. And after we met that one time, a couple of years later, when I was in the position at the unit helping develop the combative program, the unit at the time said, "Hey, we're going to put you in this position. I want you to develop the program, reach out to people that, you can see added value." And then that's how the infancy of the combative program modernized at the unit. Yeah. And I remember reaching out to you and seeing if you'd be interested, because we still didn't know each other that well.
For sure.
But to see if you'd be interested in coming to the unit. And that's how we really, that's where we really met and became friends. And what I found really interesting about the whole way you delivered for that full week was, and I adopted that mindset, is there's multiple different ways to do it. How we get there is going to have a couple of factors, and the way that you approach it, and I agree to it today, and I still implement it in the way that I teach direct action combatives, is if we're already good at something, then use it, but add the element of combative. So when people say, what do you mean by adding the element of combative? It's like, when and where can you strike? If somebody is needing a punch in the mouth or whatever it is to solve that problem, all fine and dandy until it doesn't work, or until an edge weapon becomes implemented. Then what? And then we problem solve and pressure tested different things that it ended up being a hybrid of a lot of different things. So Muay Thai, boxing, etc. Really cool. I was drawn to it, obviously. I'm like, man, this is different than traditional martial arts in some form. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's awesome. But it's just cool how you found a way to kind of put it all together. So back to the business and the school. So you make some changes, and you guys kind of reprogram and reformat the way that you're going to deliver, and then how did things unfold from there? Were more students coming in, more people interested?
And once we made the change, we changed the name, we changed the systems a bit. I made it more approachable. Like, I changed the look of the school itself. I did things I thought was right to draw the people that were in the area.
Sure.
And also, it allowed me also to be more like free with what I thought should be within the school as far as systematically. What really helped the school grow a lot was one of my friends, Gene Dunn, who was one of Renzo Gracie's black belts as well. He started a martial arts school as well. He and I remember bringing him into martial arts, part of the process. And he was one of the guys that, as we were growing up as kids, he was the guy you thought would never survive. He was a drug addict growing up a lot. Oh, wow. And he overcame all of it. And he was a very strong person. But I knew martial arts would help him as well. And we discussed it a lot. And he got involved with Renzo. And then he also started processes in his school. And he was very related into the martial arts business. And he connected to it very well. And he had me come to his school. And I think he had multiple schools at the time, by that time already, and walked me through the process of what he thought would work and the systematic way to do business for martial arts business.
Oh, right on. So he helps you a lot on the business side of things.
100%.
Very cool.
He helped grow the school. He's helped many people grow their schools.
Right.
Realistically. And it was through the processes in place over the systems we even taught, the processes that we put into place of how to treat the student, like from beginning to end, the whole process that existed, plus all the sales processing, plus at that time, all the media processing, like he helped with all of it. And through that, and then hiring other people that helped the school as well, the school just grew. And then we built a very strong team at the time. And through that whole process, like the team in any business is really going to be the success of it.
Oh, yeah,
you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the people.
You know, and so I think that was the change that happened the most was once I integrated the team with the business processes in place that worked, things just exploded and went really well.
Amazing.
Yep.
And today, how are things going with the business today? Is it where you want it to be? Are you happy with the way it's flowing? And are you looking to either add something, deduct something, make any major changes in the next short term?
So back in 2016, I was able to start working with Kydex. And the reason I wanted to start working with Kydex was because I was a left-handed shooter. Finding left-handed gear was extremely hard. So I just put two and two together, started working with Kydex, making left-handed holsters for myself. From there, quote unquote, refined my process. Started making gear for buddies that were cops in military, and it literally snowballed from there.
Everything that we do is handmade by shooters for shooters, and you know there's a lot of other Kydex companies out there, and you know they are also for shooters by shooters. But we take the time and we care about what we do, and I think that shows in our products.
Like working here, this is our home. We brought it from home and we created a home. Our kids have worked here, so this is our home.
You know, after COVID, I had to open another school by the time COVID came around. It literally destroyed both schools in a way. But we kept one of them open. And that's the school that's currently open in Redondo Beach. It was the original school that was opened. And, you know, both schools got big. One school, I mean, we had 700 students at a time.
Wow.
And COVID took all of that and flipped it on its head, of course.
Right.
And the process is that there was a time there that I was like, this school's too big. Like, it's just, we opened up, it's a monster. Like, just keeping it going with just the personnel itself was a monster. And I thought, there's probably a better way to do this. And I went back actually to Gene and asked him what he thought. And he was like, yep, leaner and meaner is always going to be better. And open multiple leaner and meaner schools versus larger schools. And you'll probably be happier overall in the end of the day. And so I was always looking to scale back from that point and tighten up the school. COVID did that for me, unfortunately and fortunately. And it's in a place now of rebuilding still from COVID, but we're in a good place. Like, it's solid.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. I would, again, like, I'm never at a place where I'm happy with it, almost any of it, right? Like, I always want to be doing something different.
All sorts of things here and there, changing curriculum a little bit for the betterment of the end user. Yeah, it's good.
Yep.
Right on.
That always is going to be the case.
And now that the business is where it's at, and you've been trucking along for quite some time, where do you foresee yourself being, say, 3 years from now? Are you still heavily involved on the mat? Are you more like project managing or system managing, or are you where you want to be right now in terms of, are you still teaching every day? Are you on the mat every day? Are you
Sure.
more giving guidance and coaching and mentorship to the next batch of instructors, or how does it look for you?
Yeah, I don't know if, I was still contracting as the school was opening as well. And I was gone a lot back and forth. I had a great team, but I think me being gone also had an effect as well. At the end of the day, I think like any business owner, if you truly want to run it well, you have to be there more than not. And I love teaching also. It's not something, I think no matter what would happen in my life, I don't think I would stop teaching ever. One way or another, I would teach regardless of how it was.
Yeah.
How much I would teach, of course, like that would change based upon how I felt and like my body and how it's working and all different things that need to happen. But the joy of teaching and training will never go away, obviously.
Right.
It's part of like, it's been since I was 5. It's never changed. It's not going to change until I'm dead. So the idea is that will always happen. What that looks like, it's honestly hard to say. It depends on the direction things go one way or another. Doing videos and doing, online things, of course, is something that I want to do and probably will do at some point. I have to take the time and make the proper planning to make that happen and do that. And that takes obviously a ton of time, but at some point that will happen as well. But I'll still teach. I don't think that'll ever go away.
Yeah. Because, we chatted not too long ago, a few months ago, and you had some discussions and negotiations with members of the law enforcement community, the SWAT teams, in a few different areas in the States. And what does that look like, and how do you see yourself involved with providing for law enforcement SWAT teams in the States? Yeah,
I've always, through my whole process, I've always either been training my team or training other teams as well. Law enforcement and military both. So it's not something that's ever stopped really at the end of the day. Recently, a federal agency came and wanted me to help create a program for them as well and put that into effect. And I currently train them also. And it's not something, again, like I would ever stop doing. It's something I enjoy doing. That process can go lots of different ways. It depends on truly how the agency works, and it's a funding issue all the time. It goes up and down like always. One way or another, they need that process to happen. So that will happen in whatever timing it has. Based upon the politics and the situation that's happening in the States right now, it approaches where it starts. And then because of things that are happening, it stops because those teams have to go to work. And everyone, because they're short-staffed, has to go to work. And so there's it stops and then it will restarts again. So that's a consistent process until it levels out. Right. So it's a bit of a slow burn, but because of the way that, funding and decision makers move and change, it'll happen when it happens. But for now, it's giving you enough work to stay busy and stay active, and, where it goes, you're not really sure. And what kind of stuff do you teach them? I teach them literally the combative mixed martial arts part with technical skill when it comes to weapons-based grappling, the tactics and the integration of CQB and how you're working a full spectrum CQB. So a lot of teams in my experience, they separate it a lot and they don't make it all happen at once. You're one of the people that I know that does, and you make it very active. They started making it that way in many different places as well. This team had not been doing that in the same way. It's not common. It's not common. I don't know why not, because it makes the most sense to do it that way. Yeah. And from doing this for now 4.5 years, I guess, I think that's what makes the direct action brand a little bit unique, is putting it all together where, rather than, just firearms training or just CQB training or just combative training, you blend it. And that makes it more realistic, but also it allows folks to explore, troubleshoot, problem solve in chaotic situations that will be presented. So it's not a static range scenario where there's no competition and there's no active resistance. That changes things. The way that we make decisions, the way that we navigate, managing long gun retention, for example, that changes drastically. So it's cool that you're doing that as well. I know there's other organizations doing it, but I find it's not super common. It's something that, honestly, for me, I'd always done with the team that I worked with. Right. Because it just made sense. It doesn't make sense to separate those things. Right. Because you're going to have to make those decisions in the environment. And the kit makes a difference. How the team is moving makes a difference. Everything matters, right? So it has to move in the way it's going to actually happen, right? Like the environment that you're going to end up in should actively be the environment you're trying to train in.
And from everyone that you've been exposed to, like the different services and in agencies and groups, why do you feel like it's taken so long to get there? And what is the reluctance or the hesitation to put all of that together and train that's, in a manner that's a little bit more realistic?
Sure. I think there's a few elements that come into play. One of them is liability. I think that's a large determining factor when it comes to law enforcement. Military as well at times. Liability plays a huge role. The injury of the active person who is doing it, so the operator in general, the concern of injury, obviously you're spending a lot of money on this person. That person can't get injured or else it costs money. I understand that as well, but like anything else.
Yeah, and I don't mean to cut you off.
For sure.
I find that interesting because I hear that a lot. And it's like, we don't want people to get hurt. And I'm like, okay. You realize people can get hurt if they're playing pickup hockey or pickup soccer, or, they're going for a run and they pull a hamstring. Well, we're not going to negate them from doing those things.
For sure. And it makes no sense, right? Like,
no. And I find it mind-boggling a little bit. Injuries, I refer to it as a 10% clause. Sure. We train, we make it as real as we can. We keep it as close to real as we possibly can. There is a 10% chance that somebody might get hurt. But then if you flip that on its head, there's a 90% chance if this material ever surfaces and somebody needs to respond and their lives or the lives of somebody else is on the line, that 90% is going to come to the surface.
Yes.
Right?
100%. I agree with you. I think that's the downfall of a lot of, organizations is I understand the liability issue. I get it. But realistically, dangerous work needs dangerous training. It's just part of the process.
Right. Because
the closer you get to it, the better you're going to be at it, right? The more decisions you make under stress in the similar environments, the easier that decision is made when you actually have to make it.
Right.
So the idea is if you don't do that, how are you going to get there? And then the last thing you want to do, I'm sure you're familiar with it. You don't know how anyone's going to react in reality until it happens.
Right.
But so the idea is to get them as close as possible to it so that you do understand how they're going to react as much as you can.
Right.
Right. And then you're teaching them and training them how to respond better if it's needed or differently. Or, honestly, if you don't do the work, I always tell people, listen, you don't have any options if you're not trained. If you don't create a skill, there's no option to use the skill. At least if you train the skill, you have the option to choose to use it. And I never understand the expectation of somebody showing up to an operation, expecting that person to be able to do a skill without having to train it consistently.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. If they haven't seen it before, there's no reference point for them to draw upon under a little bit of stress. I'm currently part of this working group from an organization in the west part of Canada that's doing a study on training scars. And the working group audience is a mixture of military and law enforcement professionals, either in a training component or in an operational context. And it's pretty cool because it's been ongoing for several weeks now, but they're trying to do a few things. They're trying to qualify what is a training scar, what does it look like, how is it caused, what are some ways to mitigate the chances of training scars, and actually just the terminology of it, what it means to some people is different.
Sure.
But when I agreed to doing this and become part of it, I thought it was really neat because get to meet a group of different people, learn a few things from people that study this stuff on a consistent basis. So far it's been pretty interesting.
Awesome.
But where I'm going with that. I keep coming back to when we fill out these surveys and whatnot, we're answering these questions. Some of them are open-ended. Some of them are yes, no. Most of them ask for substantiation to support our thought. And I keep coming back every time I open up the computer and I put some time into this. I'm like, training scars. The biggest training scar, in my opinion, is not training as real as you can possibly train.
100%.
Avoiding it for all of the reasons that we can come up with. We don't want somebody to get hurt. We don't want somebody to have exposed what they're not good at. We don't want to crush their confidence. to me, it ought to be reversed engineered and looked at completely different. The benefit to doing it and the benefit to putting ourselves into those, being comfortable with discomfort is like aspirationally is going to just expand in one's knowledge and understanding. So should that situation present itself, they're not worried about getting hurt. They're worried about doing their job and being effective.
Yep.
So anyway, it's really interesting. I've been enjoying it so far, learning a lot, but it's funny. I keep coming back to this. The training scars, not training.
It's amazing to me that the reasons people come up with, for one, and also the idea behind it, like even what they choose to train, like people, in the tactical environment love doing CQB. They love it, but they don't want to train in the, hand-to-hand versions of what they need in the environment that they're going to train in, because a lot of different reasons, obviously. They don't want their ego bruised on it. They want to look good all the time. They want to feel good all the time. Sure. But you want to build confidence in something, you get good at it. Like you don't run from it. Yeah. And who's the person that is in front of you that as an operator is afraid of training and showing that they're, okay, I'm not great at this, but I'm going to get great at it.
Well, it's most people that I've been exposed to, especially from military, special operations, policing, tactical officers, and even some general patrol officers. They're hungry to train. There's a lot of them that are really interested in evolving and getting better and getting stronger. But I'll give you an example. Just recently, Ottawa police officer has been training with me hand-to-hand type stuff a little bit, and we've been to the range a few times. It's been presented or directed to him that he's not allowed to do any firearms training with anyone outside of the service in the future for liability reasons, in case something happens, in case he gets hurt. And this is just recent. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense to me. He said, I agree, but that's what I was told. So basically, he's not able to evolve his skills, polish his skills, get better and we'll use firearms because that's what he was told. So he shared that with me. And so, but we can still do unarmed combat stuff, like hand-to-hand defensive tactics stuff. He said, yep, that's okay. But we just can't go to the range. And I'm like, well, why and who said, and what's the motivation to just compartmentalize that piece of training? Yep. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, what's the reason behind it?
What's the reason? If there's a liability concern, again, I bring it back to, playing pickup hockey or volleyball, whatever. Are you going to say, well, there's a chance that you might get hurt playing volleyball and you blow your shoulder and you can't do your job? Yep. You're going to cut that out? To me, it doesn't make sense. I agree. I don't understand the motivation behind it. I don't agree with it. Not that it matters what anyone thinks, in my opinion, but it's just a little bit backwards. If anything, he's only going to get better. He's only going to make wiser decisions. He's only going to be more proficient, more confident.
Absolutely.
And he's paying for it out of his own pocket.
Yeah, right? It's not costing anything. Yeah. In fact, it's only giving. It's not taking. Yeah. Right. And I think it's very interesting, the process of people getting hired. Obviously I was talking, some of your guys today about it. Like the people who are the decision makers are the people who are making those choices, and it's a top-down choice, right?
Yeah, they're the farthest thing away from actually doing it operationally.
Yeah, they're the ones making the choice. And some of them have never done the job. No. Some of them have.
Or they've been so far gone from it.
Right. Or they haven't done it in so long now, they don't really connect to it anymore. Those are the people making those choices. Instead of somebody who's in it, who knows the need for it. And even when they ask for it, they say, the person who's in charge says, no, we don't need that. Like, it makes no sense. Mm-hmm. To me, again, like the combat chassis is your body, right? Any weapon you put in that person's hands should be functional and attached to the skills that body has. Mm-hmm. If you have no skill without that tool, then how do you get to the tool under stress? Like, how do you get to the tool in a fight? All those things that you actually have to do fighting to a weapon, you don't have the skill to use. And on top of it, the confidence level of doing anything but use a weapon isn't there. So they go to the weapon automatically, right? Like that's the answer to everything is the weapon. The tool becomes the only options, right? You don't have any skill, you don't have any options. So the idea is like, if you give them enough skill, then they have choices and options on top of being able to make the decisions better, on top of being able to do their job better, being more confident, all the different things that go and attach to it. It literally makes no sense, right? It's like telling people, and this is also another thing when I say like, they love doing CQB and they'll do it over and over every day. But then when it comes to the training side, they're like, we don't have time to do that. We need to do these other things instead. And I always say, okay, well, let's put it in context. How many people have you shot? And a lot of times the answer is none. Okay, I understand the need for needing to do CQB. How many people have you had to put hands on? Like, is that a daily process in your job?
Yeah.
A lot of times, yes. Yeah. So you're not spending any time doing that, but you're only spending time doing something that you don't get a lot of experience in the field. I'm not saying don't do that. No, of course you should. Of course. But you should also equally do this other thing that you're going to have to do consistently all the time. The averages are much greater that you're going to have to do this. Yeah. So I don't understand the liability side of it because truthfully, to me, that's a liability. Yeah. Like the true liability is not having the skill. Yeah.
And you're putting people on the street, on the street or in operational context that are lacking the confidence or the understanding and the decision-making ability to, execute certain things. That becomes a liability. Yeah, for sure. I agree. What, things are a little bit different in the States than they are in Canada, but there's a lot of similarities and commonalities. What do you see common with exposure to providing training for law enforcement specifically? Like, do you see a common theme that comes to the surface reoccurrence?
I think that's one of the common themes that you see no matter what, no matter where you go, almost in the world. There are some locations in the States and some departments that they're into training and they do it for sure. But it's not the majority. It's definitely a minority. And I think that's unfortunate. I also think, listen, like Jiu-Jitsu, I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's great. I don't think it's the only answer that's needed. I think it's the first step for sure. And I think getting involved in that is great. And I think training something is better than training nothing, obviously.
Yeah, I agree.
But there are other skills that are necessary for that job. Right.
Yeah. And, same, like Jiu-Jitsu was my first love of martial arts. What do you think? Why is Jiu-Jitsu such a utilized tool, and there's systems that are built around policing, like the PJJ system with Chad Lyman, Great Survival Tactics, we can name a bunch that provide for law enforcement, very Jiu-Jitsu based. Why do you think it's such a draw with law enforcement folks?
I do think it's very effective in the one-on-one confrontation where weapons are not introduced. I don't think people are, again, always thinking about that. So I think they assume that gives you the answer. Because yes, like in a one-on-one confrontation, if you know Jiu-Jitsu, they say it's the magic power, right? Like it's the thing that puts you above everybody else, that gives you control over somebody. For sure. I don't disagree with that. But I also think there's another side to that. And I think when you run into people who are trained, then if they're trained in other things, say MMA, and you just do Jiu-Jitsu, there's a lot of tactics that are put into Jiu-Jitsu for, say, sport only or gi only, or whatever it might be, without tools that put you in negative spaces, right? Like not knowing how to defend punches, not knowing that, inverting is not what you really want to do in a street fight or a confrontation. You might have to. It's not like a skill you don't need especially, but if you're going to spend your time and dedicate it to what you need for the job, that wouldn't be one of the skills that you would choose, right? So the idea is like, I think that it's effective. I think it's something people can train without the obvious injuries of getting hit and all the other things that happen when you're striking, because control is an issue for people, obviously.
Sure, yeah, I think it's safer when you're not taking blows to the head consistently. For sure. Yeah, for sure, it's safer. There's no question. You can train really, really hard in Jiu-Jitsu and still walk off the mat without forgetting where you put your keys.
And I think that's part of the process of why they're choosing it. Yeah, I do think it's missing a few things for sure, and I think if those are integrated into that system, great. Yeah. It's wonderful. And I think that's the bigger answer. It's like, for me, understanding like the combative mixed martial arts process, like that's the answer. And then you have the skills to choose from. And if you have the skills to choose from, how you deal with the altercation is different because you have confidence in whatever you need to do.
Yeah. It's like a drop down menu. Here's a situation. I've got a repertoire of tools that could fit the job description, but if we haven't trained them, there's no reference point. For sure. You're going to be flipping through an empty file folder, hoping for a course of action that just isn't there. And, what I share with folks is hope is not a course of action.
Of course not.
It's something that will leave a falsified sense of security in terms of trying to legitimately deal with the situation.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, why do you think they choose Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
I think similarly, I would probably echo it's safer. I think there's elements of jiu-jitsu that have become very popularized and marketed well. So I think there's systems that have adopted jiu-jitsu and putting a flavor on it, like police jiu-jitsu, for example, right? And I'm not casting shade. I'm trying to draw a correlation. I think it's easy for a law enforcement agency to say, yeah, we can adopt that because it's safe. We can get people training. They're not going to get punched in the head. They're not going to get concussed. So I think there's a few facets to it.
For sure.
But, based on my experience and based on, a lot of data that you see out there and different live footage that you see unfold.
Yeah.
When people are, dropping back for a straight arm lock on the street because they've done it 100 times on the mat, and then they end up losing a good position and getting their head kicked in. It's like, could that have been avoided? Bring it back to the working group about training scars. Is that a training scar? Yeah, I think that is. They get comfortable with something in a soft mat with, agreed upon set of rules with the, a choreographed set of skills.
Yeah.
It leads one to believe that they're unstoppable.
Yeah.
Until they get punched in the face.
For sure.
Or someone swinging at them with a machete or a baseball bat. You're not going to see that on a jiu-jitsu dojo. Right?
Yeah, probably.
So I think, I do love all things martial arts. I believe in continued training and exploring different things and building the repertoire of knowledge. I truly believe in that. To get fixed on one thing and that's the solution for everything is, you gotta be cautious with that.
For sure.
Pigeonhole ourselves. And then when that situation presents itself, we may not have the answer that we're looking for.
For sure. And I think any one answer is never truly the answer. In certain specific situations like combat, it's such a large spectrum of things that I think one answer there can't be the answer. There's too much involved in it. So I think jiu-jitsu gets you closer to it. And I think if the people doing jiu-jitsu have different experience, then they bring it to that experience, and then they will add the pieces that might be missing. I think that exists. I don't think it's majority. I think it's minority. Like your skill set is an example. You have a different skill set. You have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but you also fought MMA. You also are very tactically sound and aware in every aspect. So all of that information is going into what you're giving to people for law enforcement. I don't think a lot of people have that same experience. So I think that's a downfall for those people when they're giving it to law enforcement. But I do think they're trying their best. And I think they're coming with whatever experience they have and giving the best answer for that.
And I agree. And I would highlight the point that you brought up earlier. Doing something is better than nothing at all. Right. So I would applaud anyone that's doing any form of training, no matter what the sport is, whatever it is, boxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, it doesn't matter. You're doing something and you're going to be better off because of it.
100%.
And sometimes people ask me, well, what is the benefit? I look at it twofold. One benefit is if you're a special operations operator, military member, law enforcement professional, you're under a lot of pressure. The job is taxing, it's demanding. By stepping into whatever dojo it is, it provides an outlet. So from a mental release perspective and from a healthy mindset perspective, that's just one benefit.
For sure.
So you get to do something and focus on something that has absolutely nothing to do with the work. It just so happens that it's very closely correlated and can cross over quite well. So I think that's one. That's the benefit. So you're doing something completely different. It's a mental release. It gives you something to focus on that is not job related. So that's 100%. One. The other one is any form of martial arts is going to force your hand at being uncomfortable. So you get comfortable with being strangled, but it's in a safe manner where people are not trying to kill you.
For sure.
You get comfortable with, taking a liver shot and knowing what that feels like when you get keeled over at the hips. And you work through those things. So it builds conditioning to being uncomfortable. So I 100% would encourage anybody do a little bit of training, whether that's once a week, twice a week, whatever, doesn't matter. But it gives you the mental outlet, which is very beneficial for longevity. So you become like a very healthy, capable grandpa. And then the other thing is there's some direct correlation to a crossover and how it could actually help you do your job well.
For sure. 100%. And I also think, listen, I think things tend to be almost cultish in a way. And when they begin a following of it, there's kind of like this blind, dedication to it and belief in it that it has the answer to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's horrible in a lot of aspects, but I think in one it is. Like when you're dealing with somebody putting their life in the hands of that belief, like that's a very serious thing. And I think understanding that's important. I honestly don't think there's any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor out there thinking, well, I'm getting somebody injured or I'm doing something negative in any way. Everybody has great intentions. And I think they go in with their best foot forward and they're trying to help as much as they possibly can. They're giving whatever experience they have. And any training is going to be better than none, for sure. I also believe, though, that there's a way to train everything without injuring. Again, like I'm not young anymore. I have to change the way I have trained from when I was 20 to when I was 30 to when I was 40, now to when I'm 50 going to 60. Like I'm way closer to 60 than I was, right? So the idea is my training schedule has to change. How I train has to change, but it can't stop happening.
Right.
Like the activity and the motion and the connections have to exist to be relevant in any way. But you can teach all of it at a pace that's still effective without injuring each other.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah. The way that we approach training, the way we deliver training, being able to add progressions or regression based on the audience and how they're absorbing the material. Absolutely. Like as an instructor, as a coach, when we're in these, I feel very grateful and blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. And I take it very seriously. I'm very passionate about it. But the onus is on me to read the room and then be able to, look at the overall, right? So the 90% and either crank it up, make it a little bit more challenging for them, or read the room, realize that they're overwhelmed, oversaturated. And if I keep pushing the throttle, someone's going to get hurt.
Of course.
So the onus is on me to kind of control that volume dial. I don't believe in switches. I believe in dials, right? So like,
I agree.
Dial it up, pressure it a little bit. We kind of see that waver, maybe a bit of a speed wobble. Okay, I need to dial it back a little bit. I think it is not. I think I'm 100% confident.
Sure.
Because I've done it and I'm getting even better at it as I get a little bit older and the more I'm exposed. I see little nuances that are worthwhile making adjustments, and the rate of injury and the numbers speak for themselves. 100%. Does it happen? Sure, it still happens, but so small margins that I know what I'm doing. It's on the right track where we can pressure it a little bit, dial it a little bit, hit that speed wobble. Okay, dial it back.
Yep. Yeah. I think I would ask you this question because I have a version of it in my head that I think exists as well. I believe in dials 100% as well. Is there a place where there's a switch?
I do believe.
Where's the place there's a switch?
Yeah, that switch, I believe each and every one of us have it inherently in us. And I kind of use the analogy of two wolves. So I got two wolves deep inside the pit of my belly, and I keep them both on tight harnesses, and those leashes are tight.
Yep.
One is a protector. One is the one that, it's there to oversee and ensure, relative safety. And the other one is the complete savage.
For sure.
And that savage stays on a tighter leash. And I'm very, very aware if that situation ever presents itself, I'm releasing that leash like a switch. And that is a daily discipline of understanding and self-introspection of what I'm capable of.
For sure.
I know very much what I'm capable of. I hope I never have to release that wolf that is on that tight leash. But the other one's my protector. That's the one that keeps me honest. Yep. And he's the one that nips me every now and again if I'm starting to get maybe a little too inflated.
Sure.
Right. So I believe in a switch. I believe we all have it if we allow it to manifest, and if we nurture it.
Yeah,
nurture it. And I'm going to feed it. And I'm going to give it an attaboy once in a while. So it's there. So should I need it on the day, release the clip.
Yep. I agree again. Like, the switch has to be there. The dial is what you should live with daily. Like the dial is what you kind of live life with consistently. The switch is a necessary tool for when you need to go from 0 to 100 or in any aspect of your life, right? If you don't switch a switch on at a point, you're behind something, right? So say it's a self-defense scenario, like,
Well, and that's what I use for an example. Like it's real life self-defense. Yeah. I need to protect my life or my family member.
Yep.
That's the context. It's not like
when else is there again? Like where is the switch?
Life is on the line.
Yeah,
right? This is it. Yeah,
yeah, I agree. And that's when I've taught people in general across the board. I've always used those terminologies in that aspect. Like the switch you need to have is when it's necessary. The switch of, okay, all of a sudden somebody came out of nowhere. I didn't do a bunch of things right with situational awareness.
Sure.
And all of a sudden this person is in my face. I need to have a switch to deal with a problem.
Agreed.
But that switch isn't like some non-thinking aggression.
No.
It's an
quite
aggression.
the opposite. It's a conscious thought.
Yeah, it's a process of thinking.
It's a conscious thought based on things that are unfolding very quickly.
Yep.
And how do we bridge the gap between decision and action? It's through training and through exposure.
100%.
And, you know, I believe it's trainable. I do believe we can bring people there, but the onus is on the learner, the student, to accept that.
Of course.
Like you need to accept, do you think you have it in you? Mm-hmm. And if you do, okay, let's nurture it.
Yeah.
Right. And know that it's for your protection. It's not, for any other reason.
For sure. I mean, we run into people all the time that have issues with violence. Of course, like that's normal. You should not truly want to do harm to somebody else. No. That's not what anybody should be walking around thinking. I want to hurt other people.
Of course not.
So obviously that's a normal thing. The issue becomes, okay, you have this, I don't want to hurt other people attitude all the time, but all of a sudden that needs to go, yes. I need to hurt this person right now.
Right.
So that needs to be a switch that happens, or you're behind something that you might never get in front of again.
And that's exactly my point. If I don't feed and nourish that wolf,
Mm-hmm.
when I expect him to unleash fury,
Yep.
he's not going to be there.
Yep. 100%. And I think that tends to be an issue for people in training and teaching. There's a lot of things and methodologies that people go through. There's an evolution of instructorship. There's an evolution of student.
Sure.
And those things have to kind of mash together as they're moving, and they evolve, and you get better at both. And it takes time to get better at both, but more importantly, it takes training.
It does.
Like in both. Like you start off as an instructor. That's not the end result. That's the beginning of learning how to be an instructor. That evolves over time with all these other experiences.
It's been an awesome journey, man. Like I'm sure you could probably attest to this too. I know the way I approach training and delivering training 5 years ago is different than this week.
Oh, for sure.
Like there's little nuances and changes based on a whole bunch of factors, like the complexities and the realities of today's new normal. What we're dealing with today is a little bit different than what we were dealing with 5 years ago. There's a lot of people percolating. There's a lot of people that are, unstable.
For sure.
So with righteous intent, I step out the door, whether with my friends, my family, there's an element of vigilance that is sharpened now based on the realities of what we're dealing with versus 5 years ago.
For sure.
So does it make me paranoid? No, it just makes me more aware.
Yeah. I don't think living paranoid is the way to live. Right. Obviously not.
No, like
I don't think it's a healthy thing. And I think awareness should happen. It shouldn't be where, your head's in your phone and you're walking outside and life isn't expected to hit you in the face that way.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously I enjoy my life every day. I have a good time. I'm not
life is good.
Like moving around in some angry, aggressive way.
No.
But at any given time, sure, I need to be aware and I need to be able to respond. I've been in plenty of situations where it's had to happen. Mm-hmm. So my experience has taught me I need to be trained to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I will always train to do that regardless of where I am in my life. I mean, you've known me for a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, my body has been broken in so many different ways over all these years. You still have to train. Yeah. Like you still have to work it no matter what.
What advice would you give somebody that is, they're an avid practitioner, so they're training on a consistent basis, and then an injury happens. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them in terms of, I don't want to pose the question or put the cart before the horse, but sure. What advice would you give them? So they sustain an injury, but they love training. That's their outlet. They love evolution and learning. What advice would you give them?
Even in the school, I see it all the time. So the advice I give people when it comes to injuries is something along the lines of, again, it depends on the injury. I always believe about working around an injury. Like if you injure your shoulder or your arm, attach it to your body and keep training at a level that you're not going to injure it more or yourself more.
Right.
But it shouldn't stop. Like you have all these other tools. Your entire body still works. You should still do the training the best that you can. Mm-hmm. I've had to do it so many different times in my life that I know it's a functional, effective tool. Mm-hmm. I don't think stopping something that you're doing is the answer.
Right.
I just don't.
What about, so that's the physical side. What about somebody that sustained some sort of mental cognitive injury? So maybe concussion, or maybe an incident that has triggered an element of PTSI or something of that nature. What advice would you give that person?
Again, like I think training through the problem is always the answer, and curtailing the training to what the needs are. So obviously, if you have a TBI, you're not going to get hit in the head. That's not the goal.
Right.
There's tons of other training you can do outside of that.
Calisthenics.
Yeah. I mean, the training never ends.
Swim, bike.
Yeah, there's everything.
Like that. People, what do you mean? That's not training. Sure is.
Of course it is.
It is. Conditioning is an element of training. It just happens to be a different modality.
Conditioning is the number one tool of training.
Right.
Like when it comes to effectiveness in your skill set. And I say this to everybody all the time. Conditioning is the number one tool that allows you to use all the tools after it. And I don't care what tool you're trying to use as a weapon, your conditioning has to be above that or equal to it. And if it doesn't exist, you can't use it. I don't care what technical skill you have. If you can't breathe, you're not getting to it. If you can't think through it, you're not getting to it. So your conditioning always has to be one of the more important things that you deal with. And then after that, all the other things that you're training come into play.
Awesome. Love it. Okay, buddy, we're probably coming up to an hour or so.
For sure.
Great conversation. I mean, we could chat about this stuff for many, many hours, but both of us have things to do and prep for tomorrow. So let's leave it on this. If there was any type of advice that you would give, specifically because you have a lot of exposure to providing for law enforcement SWAT teams.
For sure.
So you get a young 22, 23-year-old, relatively new law enforcement officer. He's hungry. He wants to become a tactical SWAT officer. What advice would you give him in terms of how would he prep himself to be as successful as he possibly could in whatever team that he wanted to be part of in the SWAT organization?
What I would always say is I believe in partly being the gray man. Like fitting into a team is one of the most important aspects of it. Understanding that you have a voice, but at sometimes you don't. Always be a student. Be open to everything. Have an open mind. Always. Never lose the open-mindedness that you might walk into it with. And over time, or, just the extension of the job itself and all the other weight on top of it, you lose that open-mindedness somewhere along the lines. I would tell them, don't ever lose that. Never stop training, ever. I don't care what anybody ever tells you. The training is the success you're going to have in the future. If you're not training now, you're not going to find success in the future. So I would always tell them, listen, have a very well-balanced life. When you need to or are able to have that balance, that's something that needs to happen. It might not be right now in the beginning of your career. I would say if you don't have a family yet, don't have one until you're at the place you can give it the proper attention that it deserves and needs. Don't jump into that in a situation that it's going to take away from one thing or the other, and you're going to have a payment on either side.
Right.
Because I tell people there's a payment for everything in life.
Right.
You have to choose if you want to make that payment or not.
Right.
Within that environment, the payment is great on either side. And I think it's a good idea to make that plan, enact that plan, and execute that plan the way you think best. Sometimes at 21 or 22, we don't see the plan for what it really should be. And you should look at somebody who has lived through it and get their advice through it before you come up with your own idea of what that plan should be.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think I said it one time before, but if we're entering an arena that's relatively new to us and we have the ability to chat with somebody that's 10 years older than us and they're already been in that arena, they've got 10 years of life on us and they've been in the arena, chances are they probably have some wise words to share with us that would benefit somebody that's a little bit junior, a little bit younger. So yeah,
for sure,
that's great advice.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, Brian. Well, I really appreciate you making the time. I also appreciate you coming up and giving me a hand with this week's course has been going great. We got a mixture of some tactical officers and we've got some military guys that are just crushing it, doing a great job, asking good questions, and I know they value your input and your insights. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Honestly, it's an honor for me to come up in any way and help you, only because I know the person that you are. We see things similarly in a lot of different ways, but one of the major ways is truly only working with good people that have proper intent, but that also will deliver on that intent. Like, I think that's a big piece of it. I don't think people truly understand how lucky they are when they're able to train with certain people.
Yeah.
I think that's a thing that's very normal. I think if they get further down the line, they look back on it and they start to see it for what it really is.
Yeah.
The people that you're training with right now, I think they do look at you in a way where they understand that they're getting the training they should be getting and from who they're getting it, which is great. It's just an honor to help, honestly, in any way I possibly can, because for me, the goal was always like, if I had $1 million, every single person I would ever come in contact with would get free training. I think it's one of the things, it's worth money for sure, but it's not the drive. The drive is to help others. Yeah. And for me, law enforcement, military who have to enact a job specifically should get that. I would give it to them for free always if I had the capability to do that.
Sure. Right on, man. I appreciate it. That means a lot. And it's awesome. We still got couple more days together. And,
sure, it's awesome.
Yeah, we got lots of material to cover. So let's get on with tomorrow and get through a injury-free day.
That's the plan.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Jordan. Cheers. Good to see you.